Hi everyone. Today we're diving into our predictions for the upcoming GCSE History Medicine in Britain and the Western Front exam. We will be breaking down what's most likely to come up and how you can do well for it. Before we move on, let me share something that would be really critical for you at this point: content summary and top grade models answers written by our teachers. You can find a whole range of these resources at kingsbridgeeducation.co.uk. I cannot stress enough how much of a difference this will make. You can also find the link below. Now let's break down how we actually make these predictions. Here's how it works. First, we look at frequency. We look at how often certain syllabus points have come up in the past. If something's been tested a lot, it might be less likely to appear again, or it could be a recurring favourite. Then, we look at recency. We also check how recently a topic appeared. If it came up just last year, it's less likely to show up again immediately. Finally, we look at notable gaps. We scan for gaps in key parts of the syllabus that haven't been tested in a while. These often point to what's due to come up. All three help us build a smart, evidence-based predictions. Now that you know how we build them, let's look at the recent papers because what's just come up is less likely to come up again. Let's take a look at what came up recently in the 12 and 16 mark questions. In 2024, the big topics were: why medieval medicine saw little change. Think of Galen and the monasteries. We also saw progress in the Renaissance, specifically Harvey, as well as the role of individuals in prevention from 1700 onwards, so Jenner and public health campaigns. Then in 2023 we saw improved access to care in the modern era that includes hospitals and GPs. We also saw Sydenham as a turning point in the Renaissance, and attitudes towards medicine between 1700 and 1900 with a focus on vaccination and infectious diseases. Now, why does this matter? Well, because these topics were recently used for high mark questions, they're less likely to be the main focus again in 2025. All right, now let's talk Section A, the Western Front. Here's what's come up recently in the main questions. In 2024, it was new wound treatments. 2023 focused on transport problems. 2022 gave us the Aarhus Hospital. 2021 was all about dressing stations. And 2020, the Thomas Splint. As for the source inquiries, they've tested things like casualty clearing stations, new medical techniques, trench foot, blood transfusions, and gas attacks. So, what might be next? For the 4-mark describe features questions, keep an eye on these topics as they haven't shown up in a while. These are base hospitals, the full chain of evacuation, the work of the RAMC or nurses, mobile X-ray units, and the blood bank created for Cambrai. For the source enquiry questions, the topics we think we most likely come out are transport effectiveness like ambulances and how the terrain affected movement, shell shock its nature and how it was treated could also come out, roles at base hospitals, nurses' experiences and X-rays as well. Now let's turn to Section B for the 12 and 16 mark questions. We've identified major areas of the syllabus that haven't appeared in a while. Let's start with the medieval period. The Black Death case study, its causes, treatment, and attempts at prevention hasn't been a main essay focus in recent years. This is a clear gap and well worth revising for the Renaissance part of the course. While key individuals like Harvey and Sydenham have come up recently, a question on the limits to change or continuity of ideas and treatments during this period could be a new angle. For the 18th and 19th century, there's a lot of potential here. The John Snow and cholera case study is long overdue. So is Koch's specific work, especially beyond Pasteur. The 1875 Public Health Act, its causes and impact, is another likely focus. And don't overlook Lister and the development of antiseptics, which could easily come up in more depth. For the modern era, this is where some of the biggest gaps are. Penicillin, including the work of Fleming, Florey and Chain, is a major topic that hasn't featured as a full 12 or 16 marker recently. The lung cancer case study is also a strong possibility, especially its diagnosis, treatment, and government response. Beyond that, we could see questions on the wider impact of the NHS, the role of genetics and DNA, or advances in diagnostic technology like scans and blood tests. These topics are all long overdue. What questions to expect for the 12 mark? Explain why. Questions. We think you should prepare for the following questions. Explain why John Snow's cholera work was important. Explain why surgical progress was slow before the 19th century. and explain why the government acted more on public health in the later 19th century. Now, for the 16 marks, how far do you agree question, we suggest you prepare for the following claims. Penicillin was the most important medical breakthrough of the modern period. The main reason for 19th century public health improvements was individuals. The Black Death was the most significant turning point in medieval medicine. Science and technology were the main factor driving surgical improvements circa 1700 to present, and government action has been the most important factor in improving health since 1900. Let's not overlook the 4-mark comparison question in Section B. Recently, we've seen comparisons like medieval versus modern treatment, or Renaissance versus 18th century prevention. Looking ahead, possible pairings include ideas about disease, causes in the medieval versus Renaissance periods, home treatment in the Renaissance compared to the 18th or 19th century, training of doctors in the medieval era versus the 18th and 19th centuries, or prevention methods during the Black Death in 1348 and the Great Plague in 1665. Let's finish with the golden rules, the non-negotiables if you're aiming for top marks in GCSE History. First, cover everything if you can. Predictions are helpful, but don't rely on them alone. Second, know your question types inside out. It's not just what you know, it's how you apply it. And third, study real answers. This is where most students go wrong. They revise the content, but they never see what a top grade answer actually looks like. That's exactly why the resources at Kingsbridge are so valuable. They break down top answers for you. So give your all. You've got the tools and the ability to do this. Good luck.